Sachas Nedarim Daf Pei Aleph begins with some agadata about Bnei Aniyim, Talmid Chachamim, cleanliness. Then it goes on to discuss the opinion of Rabbi Yossi that we saw quoted about using one's water to wash when others need it to drink. Then the Gemara will return to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, and the Gemara will want to know that which he said is not Inui Nefesh, does it count as Beinah Beinah? The Gemara will discuss that at length. So let's begin. The Gemara says they sent a message from there. That's from Eretz Yisrael. They said, be careful with three things. Be careful with arbuvisa, that is uncleanliness, and chabura, that is make sure you learn with a group of people, with chaverim, and also be careful with the children of aniyim, of poor people, because from them comes a Torah. Like it says, Yizal mayim midolyav, v'zar b'mayim rabim, v'yara me'agag malkai, v'sinase malchusai. So that the water, meaning the Torah, pours forth midolyav from the poor ones. Says the Gemara, why is it that Talmidei Chachamim don't often have children who are Talmidei Chachamim? The Gemara gives a few reasons, and this is related to what we said, that usually Talmidei Chachamim will come from the poor people, not from other Talmidei Chachamim. So the Gemara gives a few reasons. Rav Yosef says because people shouldn't think that a Torah comes in an inheritance, that you inherited it from your father. You got to work hard for Torah. Some of the Rishonim seem to indicate that this is because the children of Talmidei Chachamim think they're going to get it as an inheritance automatically because they're the son of a Talmid Chacham, and therefore it doesn't work out because they don't work hard. Rav Sheshes, son of Rav Idi, said in order that they should not lord it over the tzibur and be too tough on them. And Mar Zusha said because they do show excessive strength towards the tzibur. Rav Ashi says because they refer to regular people as chamri, as donkeys. Ravina says because they don't say Berachas HaTorah properly, because they're in a house of the Torah and they get up early to learn, they end up not saying, they end up not saying Berachas HaTorah in the right way, and not saying Berachas HaTorah causes a person to not be able to become a Talmid Chacham. As Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, what is Pshat in the Pasuk discussing the Chorban, which says, Mi Yeshua Chacham v'Yavin Ezayis v'Asher Diber Pi Hashem Eila v'Yagida Al Ma'av the Haaretz. Who's the one who can know what is the reason that Eretz Yisrael, the base of Mikdash, was destroyed? What is the reason for the Galus and the Chorban? So everyone is saying, we don't know, we can't figure out what it is. So the Gemara says this was asked to the Chachamim, it was asked to the Nevi'im. They did not have an explanation. There was asked to Malchei Asharis even. They did not have an explanation for why HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroyed the Klal Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael until HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself came and said in the next pasuk, V'yemer Hashem al azum estirasi, because they left my Torah behind, Asher nasati lifneim v'leishavu b'kayli v'leihalchu ba. Did not listen to my voice and did not go in it. So the Gemara asks, what's the difference between listen to my voice and go in it? They're both the same. So we hear this in the name of Rav, that it's referring to two things. They didn't do Torah and learn Torah, and also they didn't say the bracha on Berachas Torah. Even those who did learn didn't say the bracha. Now the Gemara quotes a story. The Gemara says, Isi Bar Yehuda did not go to the yeshiva of Rav Yossi for 3 days. So Rav Yossi's son, Vardimos, found him and he said, why didn't the master come to the base medrash of my father for the last 3 days? He said, because I don't understand your father's reasoning. What's he referring to? So Vardimos said, tell me what it is that you don't understand. Maybe I can figure it out for you. He said, I don't understand this thing that Rav Yossi held, that if one town needs water to wash the clothing, they're allowed to do that, even if it means that it won't flow downstream to the next town that needs it to drink. So how could that be such a thing? So he said, we learn it from a pasuk. The Torah says about the Ari Levim. It says, that the extra area around the migrash should be for their behema, for their property, and for their chayasam. So what's chayasam? If you think it means a chaya, that's an animal that goes under behema. So maybe it means that the actual life they use it to live. That can't be, because that's obvious. For sure they'll be able to use it for their life. They don't have to give it to someone else. So it has to mean for washing, because washing counts as life, like we said in the name of Rav Yossi, because the pain of uncleanliness is too great. The Gemara now has a question about the machlokes which we've seen earlier between Rav Yossi and the Chachamim. Rav Yossi and the Chachamim argued about when a woman makes a neder that she's not going to wash or that she's not going to beautify herself. Is that something that the husband could be mayfared? Now, their discussion was specifically about the right to be mayfared because it's inui nefesh, because it's something which is too restrictive on the body. So the Chachamim held that it is inui nefesh, and Rabbi said it's not inui nefesh. The most question is, there's two reasons that one could be mefer. One of them is inui nefesh. The other one is if it's beinah lebeina, it's something between him and her, relevant to between the two of them. So the question is, does Rabbi Yossi hold that you could be mefer this, even though it's not inui nefesh, because it still qualifies for hafara, because it's beinah lebeina? So the Gemara says, if you look at the language of the Mishnah, it's pretty clear. Rabbi Yossi said, I argue with you when I say that this is not inui nefesh. Now, if you meant to say that it's not inui nefesh and it's not beinah lebeina and you can't be made for it, he should hit it on the head. He should say you can't be made for it. I disagree. The Chacham say you could be made for it. I say you can't be made for it. But it doesn't say he argues on the halacha. He only says that it doesn't count as inui nefesh. That clearly implies that he does hold that it is beinah lebeina, and therefore you could be made for it. So Gemara says, you're right, that is what he's saying, but not necessarily does he hold that way. It could just be that he said that according to me, it's not dvarim shebeinah lebeina. It's also not dvarim shel inui nefesh. According to you, they hold that it is dvarim shebeinah lebeina, and that's what Rabbi Yossi was saying when he allowed the implication that it is beinah lebeina. So he's saying now, at least agree to me that this is not inui nefesh. Beinah lebeina, maybe it is, but inui nefesh, for sure that you can't say. So since it's possible to read Rabbi Yossi that way, we still don't know what he holds. Is not washing and not being miskashet, does that count as a problem beinah lebeina, and therefore you could be made for or not? So the Gemara quotes him Machlokes Amoraim. Rav Ada bar Abba said you could be made for it. Rav Huna said you cannot be made for it. And he gave a reason. He said it really makes no difference to the husband whether she cleans herself or not. And now we change our understanding of miskashet, that she takes care of the lower regions to remove hair. And he uses an expression, you don't find a fox that dies in its own hole in the burrow that he makes. And this is referring to that the husband knows his way around, and even if she won't wash, he's not going to get injured by a hair or something which will attach to him or connect to him, which is the concern that may be beinah lebeina. Gemara now says we have a brayso that's clear like Rav Ada bar Ava, that Rabbi Yossi holds that you could be mefer these things because it counts as dvarim shebeinah lebeina. So the brayso is a bit lengthy. The brayso says that something which is inui nefesh, you could be mefer whether or not it's beinah lebeina. Something which is not inui nefesh, you can only be mefer if it's beinah lebeina, not if it's between her and other people, which again means that it applies outside the marriage, or it applies to a divorce situation. Now, we bring examples over here. So, example number one is if she says all the fruits of the world are usher on me, so that's inui nefesh, that you could be mefer. If she says I'm not going to work to feed my father, your father, my brother, I'm not going to give straw to your animals or water to your cattle, all these things don't count not as beinah lebeina and not as inui nefesh, and therefore you cannot be made for them. Now here's the key point. If she says I'm not going to put on makeup, or I'm not going to take care of my hair, or I'm not going to do tashmish, those things, he could be mefer. That is dvarim shebeinah lebeina. Now this is where our proof is before we continue the Mishnah. According to the Rabbanan, all these things are mufarable because they are inui nefesh, nothing to do with beinah lebeina. And this opinion therefore clearly has to be Rabbi Yossi, and it says that he could be mefer because it's beinah lebeina. So there you have our proof that Rabbi Yossi holds that all these things are beinah lebeina, and therefore they are meferable. Now the brayso continues. If she says, I'm not going to make the bed for you, I'm not going to pour the wine for you, I'm not going to wash for you your hands, your feet, or your face, those are amongst the services that a woman is contractually prepares or performs for her husband, and therefore she has no right to make such a neder. So the Tanna Kama says, she doesn't even have to be made for them. They're canceled automatically because they're against the Torah. Gamliel says, no, he has to be mefer because it says, lo yachal devari, we don't want her to be violating her word, which she has to in this case. Therefore, he should be mefer to take it off. Now, the Brayso brings a different shot, lo yachal devari, that teaches that a chacham should not be matter his own nedarim, even though he's a chacham, he should go to someone else for a taras nedar. So the Mishnah spells out the proof, and the Mishnah brings the proof. Now the Gemara has a kasha. One of the examplos here in the brayso was shelo shamish mitasi. I'm not going to do tashmish, and that he could be mefer because it's dvarim shebeinah lebeina. Someone says, what's the case? What exactly did she say? If she answered him being mishamish, she answered her hanas tashmish on him, so that she can't answer because that's an obligation that a woman has to her husband. Tashmish is a chof. So it must mean where she said, I'm not going to have hana from having tashmish from you. She asked it on herself. So you can't force her to have a tashmish, to have a hana, which is also to her based on the neder that she made. Like Rav Kahana said in the name of Rav, that if she says, I'm answering the hana of my tashmish on you, you force her anyway. She can't make that iser. If she says, I'm answering your hana tashmish on me, that is a valid iser, because you don't force a person to eat something which is forbidden for him. Now the Gemara just brings another brisa which lines up with the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel here that we said. The brisa says, what is an example of something which is permitted, but people make it into an isser, and you can't force them to keep it as heter because they made it into an isser? That's learned out of Lo Yachal Devar. You can't violate their word. So that is Rabbi Gamliel's opinion here, that said he should be meifir the things that she's obligated to do because of Lo Yachal Devari. Now the pshat in that, the brisa continues, is that Lo Yachal Devari teaches, like we said before, that a Talmid Chacham cannot be meifir his own nedarim. It has to go to a Chacham to be meifir them.